What is going on, YouTube? Today we are reacting to why Gen Z culture is basically medieval China. And honestly, I don't know how he's gonna get the correlation to this because that title seems insane. But I do hope you do enjoy today's video. I do stream over at twitch.tv/TrueEarl and on this main YouTube channel as well. I do hope you do enjoy today's video. Let's get right into it.
The other day I was thinking about it and I realized, you know who these dang Gen Zers remind me of? The Song Dynasty from medieval China. Anyone else been feeling this way lately? No, it's just me?
No.
Well,
yeah.
Let me explain what I mean. There's all this new data to suggest that younger people these days want to spend their money on experiences, not
roughly 60% of millennials, Gen Z would rather spend money on life experience like traveling, concerts, now save for retirement, and they have bigger mistakes. I like staying at home and saving money. I'm thinking I might technically be a millennial, just barely Gen Z. Maybe one of the two. I don't know. I think I am a millennial though. So maybe I don't fit in this demographic.
Physical items. I think it reflects this growing hunger for third spaces. And if you don't know what third spaces are, let me just quickly break it down for you. Basically, your two main spaces are home and work. And historically, the third space was somewhere in the middle. Maybe it was the bar or the guild hall or the tea house. These have all but gone extinct recently or have become prohibitively expensive, and young people are feeling it. They want the third spaces back. This maybe feels like a very 21st century vibes-based phenomenon, but it's actually extremely Chinese. The Song Dynasty was the first era in history to have what we would consider as a lifestyle culture, where the cities were actually designed for pleasure and snacking and nighttime entertainment, just like so many downtown areas are today. There was this 12th century writer named Meng Yuanlao who wrote this fascinating memoir called The Record of a Dream of Splendor at the Eastern Capital. It's one of these shocking works from the Middle Ages that I love reading because it seems like it was written by someone recently instead of someone 1,000 years ago. He writes this whole nostalgic reminiscence of the Song capital city, Kaifeng, and talks all about the 24-hour tea houses and the professional performers and storytellers and the specific vibes of the different districts. There's this one section where he talks about restaurant culture. I'll just quote the full thing here and you tell me if this sounds familiar. When the guests arrive, a single person holding chopsticks and a menu questions all of the seated guests. The men of the capital are extravagant and they demand 100 different things. Some hot, some cold, some warm, some regular,
so like the guests?
Some extremely cold, and things like noodles laced with lean and fatty meat. Everyone orders something different. The waiter takes the orders and draws near a counter where he stands in line and recites the orders off from the start. I don't know, this to me—
Wait, hold on. He might be cooking. What the hell? Wait, this is actually very similar to what it is now. What the heck? But how did this stop not being like, wouldn't all like times in history be like this then after this was kind of created?
It literally sounds like a night out in 2026. I'm positive this isn't what you would picture in your head when you hear the word medieval. Also, just to give you a historical timeline here, this is basically China on the eve of the eventual Mongol invasion, and it's a time and a place where consumerism is starting to flourish, and it's becoming a core identity for younger people. Bringing it back to Gen Z, I've noticed that there's this big obsession with what I would call curated living. I don't know, maybe I'm not describing it accurately, but it's super vibes-based, like life is one big Pinterest board. Think of terms like cozy games or the aesthetics of going on a walk around the city with an iced matcha. It's this sort of return.
Guys, that's some white girl shit. Come on. I go out for efficiency. I go out for groceries. I plan out my day, what I'm gonna do, and I go back home. I'm a homebody. I ain't going nowhere.
Song Dynasty, scholar, gentleman, urban ideal. Your status isn't just about money, although that'll obviously always be important. It's about your taste. Back then, it was about your taste in tea and incense and interior design. Now it's more so about your taste in underground music and niche TikTokers. The youth don't want to be told what's cool anymore by commercials and MTV with big corporations calling the shots. They want to create their own experiences. They want to get medieval Chinese again.
I kind of get it.
There's been a big surge in traditional Chinese medicine trends among Westerners on TikTok recently. You see it everywhere. A number of Chinese American influencers have been sort of introducing these ancient concepts like Qigong practice or drinking hot water instead of cold water, and the internet has been going crazy for it. So maybe medieval China is making a comeback in more ways than one. We won't just focus on the Song Dynasty here. There's more to China in the Middle Ages than just that one period, but I do have a few more Song boxes I want to check before we continue. Before we do that, just a quick plug, if you like my content, which of course you do, you should definitely join my Patreon, link in the description. You'll get access to the official Medieval Mindset podcast with weekly episodes, the Medieval Mindset book club, voting rights on topics and titles and thumbnails, the essential medieval history reading list, special videos that don't get posted on my main channel. So sign up now,
saying, like,
and if you're not subscribed
I got right
to
to
this
vote now
channel,
because I watch his YouTube channel
as well. Back to the video.
I'm an idiot.
Maybe you've heard of the modern phenomenon of looks maxing, or maybe you aren't chronically online and have no idea what I'm talking about. Basically, looks maxing is the new version of the age-old concept of getting hot, although it goes way beyond diet and exercise and a little Botox. Young people, I would say especially young men, are exploring all of these
What is this guy doing to get on this trend on TikTok? Because I go on TikTok once in a while, but my For You page is nothing like this. Other than Giga Chad, because that's a freaking dope meme. Whatever, however that goes. I don't get stuff like this.
Scientific avenues to try and improve their looks. The most medieval seeming looks maxing method is called bone smashing, and it's been promoted over and over again by probably the most famous looks maxer, a 19-year-old streamer named Clavicular. Looks maxer, bone smashing,
I've never heard of this before.
I understand this all might sound ridiculous to you, but stick with me because it's interesting. Also, don't you want to understand the youth? Anyway, the way Clavicular describes it, bone smashing is when you take a tiny hammer and tap hard along your cheekbones and your jawbone. It causes a temporary swelling that lasts for a few hours and makes those bones look more defined. So it's something you might do just before a night out so you can look more masculine to any ladies you meet. Maybe at this point this isn't a crazy revelation, but it turns out young guys in medieval China had the same insecurities that modern men do, and they even went about similar methods of soothing their anxieties. During the Song Dynasty period, there was this really interesting tension between the Wen class, who were the more literary refined scholars, and the Wu class, who were the more martial and physical warrior caste. Depending on which group you belong to, you'd basically looks max to make sure your outward appearance matched what you represented. So that meant young men who were part of the scholarly class went to these extreme lengths to achieve this sort of refined, pale physical aesthetic with slender features to essentially highlight the fact that they never had to work with their hands.
So pretty much he's trying to say is that they wear different kind of clothing to try to fit in that certain, would it be demographic or group, something like that. So like a scholar, literally a scholar, but like a martial artist or warrior would look like a warrior. I don't know if that's the same as look back. I mean, kind of, actually, kind of, a little bit. I see comparison. It
even used specific diets and cosmetic aspects of traditional Chinese medicine to maintain this look that would instantly signal to everyone that they were part of the intelligentsia. Those in the military class, basically who we would consider to be the modern day Chads, focused primarily on bone strength. I don't know, maybe that sounds familiar to you. It wasn't just about muscle, although of course they made sure they were in great shape. It was about the qi energy within and physical density. You wanted to look like a brick wall. That was kind of the physique they were shooting for. It's important to note, of course, that they weren't hitting themselves in the face with hammers like modern looks maxers. Their routine usually included things like hitting sandbags or poles to increase their bone density. There was a 20th century French scholar named Jacques Journet who specialized in Chinese history, and he talked a lot about how these aspects of appearance became kind of a coded language of your class. In the incredibly hierarchical society of medieval China, if you didn't have the specific look, you were culturally invisible. It seems like a lot of young men, and young women too, feel this way today. If you just look up the term looks maxing on YouTube or TikTok, the insecurity...
Guys, do not search this up because you will fuck up your For You page. You guys do not need this on your For You page at all. Please, guys, don't ruin it.
...is overwhelming, but it's understandable. We were all vulnerable teenagers once too. But you see these guys giving each other ratings on a scale of 1 to 10 and recommending which specific steroids or looks maxing techniques to try so they can bring their flagging features up to speed. This includes peptides, which as far as I understand are these amino acid based performance enhancers, and the use of GLP-1s like Ozempic, which I feel like people associate with an older audience, but there seemed to be a shocking amount of young people taking them. The medieval Chinese were actually big on this kind of thing too. They were obsessed with elixirs made from rare minerals and herbs that were designed to lighten the body and extend life. A lot of these were
Okay, fair
incredibly
enough.
dangerous and even included mercury, and I'm sure in the next 10 years or so, there will be a bunch of studies showing the horrific side effects of looks maxing and peptides.
Probably.
The idea behind this medieval Chinese looks maxing was essentially the same as the idea behind the modern version, using some kind of external chemistry or method to hack your biological limits and achieve this sort of superior physical state. The Chinese wrote a lot of things down.
This can't be like only kind of to the Song Dynasty, right? It has to be like a bunch of other times in history, like in other parts of the region, like of the world, not even like region of China. So I don't think it's like specifically just the Chinese one that it makes this reference.
And thankfully, a lot of them have survived over the centuries. Like the 7th century physician Sun Simao's essential formulas worth 1,000 gold pieces. It was basically this manual for longevity and physical refinement. And if you're familiar with the European concept of balancing the 4 humors, this was along the same lines. Simao describes the body as this chemical system that can be balanced or enhanced with specific substances. This idea went even further with the medieval Chinese concept of naidan, or internal alchemy, which taught that the body was composed of 3 main ingredients,
like
qi,
yoga?
jing, and shen, that could be forged into a golden cinder if you were locked in enough on your physical discipline. Locked in is a good term to use here because this sounds just like the trend of locking in that has been popular with Gen Z for at least 5 years now. If you're not familiar, it just means cutting off outside distractions and focusing intently on some kind of personal goal.
Wait, hold on. So meditation, kind of, just with the brain rotted part where you're focusing on a game or something like whatever you're doing.
Be getting your side hustle off the ground or working out more regularly or whatever. It's become sort of a cult online, especially among the gym community, and based on what you see from these fitness influencers, it's like your pump and your physique are proof of an internal moral victory, like a victory of the will over the laziness of your base body. A medieval Neidan practitioner literally thought the same exact way. They knew that their physical health and their outward radiance was proof that they had successfully cultivated their soul in a way that others couldn't or hadn't. Young people seem way more into fitness now than they did even 10 years ago. I'm not sure if that's a COVID thing, but I love to see it. There seems to be a lot of conversation around the idea that your body is the one status symbol you can't really buy. You can buy a Bugatti or a nice watch or whatever, but you can only achieve a truly amazing physique through countless hours in the gym.
I think it has a lot to do with like social media, where like you are online and you're seeing a lot of people do all this kind of stuff, like working out and stuff, and like you see the opposite side of like a lot of heavy people and they're like fat people and stuff like that, and some of them are actually like dying like a lot, and you're probably just like trying to like click in, oh, maybe we should be healthy and like maybe hit the gym so we can reduce some pounds and like maybe be better, like feel better about ourselves. That's what the vibe I get from it. I think it's mostly like an online thing because we see everybody else looking like a certain way.
So it's really the most impressive thing you can have. There's also this quote from the video game Disco Elysium where a bouncer says to the main character, "Your body betrays your degeneracy." And that always sticks in my head when I don't want to go to the gym. I just felt like including that. I like tossing random tidbits in these videos. Now, most of what I've been talking about so far has come from the Song Dynasty, which lasted for a few centuries right smack dab in the middle of what we would consider the Middle Ages. But the Middle Ages lasted almost 1,000 years. So what about the rest of medieval China? You know what? I'm really glad you asked that. First of all, the Middle Ages happened differently in China than they did in Europe. Basically, even though there are quite a few Song Dynasty parallels, Gen Z is actually in more of a late Ming phase. That's right.
Late Ming?
In the earlier Tang Dynasty, which lasted from 618 to 907 AD, your identity was defined by your clan or your rank in the military, basically how people's identities have been defined for most of human history. You were a cog in the great chain of being, and the same thing was true in medieval Europe.
Yo, did you guys see those kids? Hold on, bro. Those babies look so demonic. What the hell? Bro, they did not have good art or something. I don't know why does their face look? I mean, you
were a cog
let's get out of there.
Being, and the same thing was true in medieval Europe. You existed within a feudal system put in place by the divine mover. By the late Ming period, which went all the way into the 17th century, there was this rise in individualism that started to run so deep that it turned into the same kind of identity crises and obsession with labels that we see among Gen Z today. You see, Chinese society had reached a level of complexity complexity to such a point that people started to define themselves by their personal quirks and not their family or job. So instead of saying, I'm a soldier, a late Ming youngin might say, I'm a connoisseur of rare incense who suffers from melancholy. In a similar way...
That just sounds like he's trying to sell me something. What the hell? Hey, I'm not buying your product. Get out of here.
You'd be hard pressed to meet a young person today who primarily identifies by their profession or their nationality. Find me a 22-year-old who introduces themselves as Garrett the American plumber, and I would genuinely be shocked. I'm sure Garrett will now show up in my comments to prove me wrong.
Hold on, how do you introduce yourself? Because I'm trying to think, if I was I think how I talk to somebody is like, hey, how's it going? I'm so-and-so, you know, like, I don't really give them too much detail about myself, because that also might be because I am also socially awkward.
Wrong, because that's how YouTube works. Instead, just like the Ming youth, young people now might identify as a neurodivergent creative with a hyperfixation on looks maxing. It's this obsession with self, and it can be dangerous because you stop viewing yourself as part of a wider community and start squeezing yourself into these ever smaller and more specific boxes. The late Ming period was a kind of renaissance that ultimately failed. It was this explosion of individual expression and art and looks maxing and everything else.
God damn it.
Manchu conquest in 1644. I honestly think we're going to see something similar with Gen Z in the coming years. They're in this period of extreme self-expression and pursuit of individual destiny right before a massive systemic reset comes. Maybe that's AI, maybe it's something else, only time will tell. Anyway, we just briefly stepped outside of the Middle Ages, so let's bring things back a few centuries for our next comparison. I want to go back to those Song Dynasty third spaces we talked about earlier. One of them was the Watsi, or the Pleasure Precinct, which sounds pretty good already. Basically, during the Song Dynasty, the government moved away from these strictly managed residential wards and allowed for the growth of pleasure precincts, or Watsi. If you've ever seen The Wire, this was kind of like the medieval Chinese equivalent of the Amsterdam experiment.
It's not, Amsterdam. Would that not just be like a brothel? Am I mistaken? Or like a massage? A rubber tug?
The Watsi were these chaotic 24-hour zones where all the basic social rules were temporarily suspended, kind of like the medieval equivalent of the unregulated internet. Now, if you let a bunch of young men loose in an area with no rules, the first thing you'd be interested in is prostitution, but in the modern day, you already check that box with online adult content and gooning. After those urges are satisfied, literally...
He actually used the term gooning in a video. This is kind of like a closer to serious video. I don't know. Why did that be so... That was not on the bingo card, boys. That was not on the bingo card.
The very next thing they want is to gamble. It's a tale as old as time, and it was a big problem in the Song Dynasty pleasure districts, and it's an even bigger problem now on private gambling Discord servers, and even huge publicly accessible apps like DraftKings.
Wait, hold on, guys. Guys, that is not gambling. What is not known as gambling, okay? It's called predicting. We're not gamblers anymore, we're not bettors. We're predictors, all right? We're making it big, predicting. It's perfectly legal. They're two different entities, all right? They're different. They're not the same.
I see so many young people now who are almost turning online gambling into a sort of career path. And
I'm saying gambling.
They did the same thing back in the day too. You see all kinds of criticisms from these Song Dynasty officials like Sima Guang, who laments that young men are abandoning the plow and the book to chase the flip of the die. There's also this modern sociologist named Beverly Yuen Thompson who writes great stuff about subcultures. And she's noted that fringe groups usually start to form when the mainstream promise of hard work equals success is broken. In the Song Dynasty, your ticket to success was passing the imperial exam, but you could study 30 years just to fail an exam that only had a 1% pass rate. That's a bad bet. Young people now are seeing the same thing. Their parents bought houses and supported an entire family on a modest single income, and now they can barely afford their rent. In this kind of paradigm, why wouldn't you open up DraftKings and put everything you own on some ridiculous parlay? Why wouldn't you dump your whole portfolio
black boys
coin in the hopes it'll take you to the moon? We might think of this younger generation of gambling addicts as just irresponsible kids whose frontal lobes aren't fully developed yet. That's definitely part of it, but they're also making a desperate, calculated attempt to exit a system that has already failed them. Going back to the Watsi, the pleasure precincts, the reason they never fully took over society is because you had to physically go to them. There was a spirit of anonymity. Basically what happens in the Watsi stays in the Watsi, but you
there was like some sort of social interaction, but now you like going outside and shit. Now you're just sitting at home and it's just all in the palm. It's all in your palm of your hand. It's like you don't even need to leave your bed anymore. You could literally just sit there and go rain bet. Wait, hold on. Will I get banned for that? Whatever. You know what? I'm not sponsored. They're just like going on a thing and just spamming like a gambling thing, like slots or something. Bro, I'm not gonna lie. I don't gamble, but I love watching the videos. Like the streamers when they go to like a gambling trip or whatever. I enjoy it. I get dopamine off of it because I know I'd be gambling at if I did it, but I'm not gonna do it. But still, it's kind of crazy that you can just do it at home, and I think that's really, really bad.
Still had to go engage in these acts in a somewhat public place and deal with the internal shame of that. Now, with the internet, young people can indulge in all of their most base desires without ever even getting off the couch.
Yeah, exactly.
And it can literally cost them their entire future. It's worth noting too that when you have a bunch of young, desperate people gathering in one place for a set objective, it can create a sort of ideological powder keg. So in the WotC, these guys formed gambling brotherhoods, and the Song Penal Code tried constantly to break them up because they feared the brotherhoods were becoming more loyal to each other than to the emperor. Now you might get into a private Discord server ostensibly to do some gambling and trade some insider tips, and next thing you know, you're radicalized into committing some horrific public act of terror. This feels like a good place to land the plane.
I don't know about that. Maybe
I want to make with these videos is that time is a flat circle, and we're essentially repeating the patterns of the past
history
over
repeats.
and over again. There's the old saying that those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it, but it seems like even when we do study history, we're powerless not to make the same mistakes. The difference now, of course, is that these things are happening on a massive global scale with the full weight of tech companies and government institutions behind them. A soldier in the Song dynasty might drunkenly head to the WotC and lose his monthly wages, and that was it. A young 20-something now might obsessively bet his entire savings on an app on his phone and ruin his whole life before it's even started. This is why we need to pay attention to these trends and recognize that even though human behavior hasn't changed, how we respond to it can. But what do you think? Has this video found you at a very medieval Chinese time in your life? Let me know in the comments. As always, I'm John. This has been Medieval Mindset, and remember, the past isn't gone. It's simply waiting to be rediscovered.
Dude, banger video. What the hell? He's actually not wrong. I'm not gonna lie. He hit the nail like pretty close. Like everything was pretty close to what he was saying. Like the relevancy to modern time now to like back into ye old China, the Tang dynasty and everything, and Song dynasty and whatever. And I'm not gonna lie, online gambling might be a big problem, but I also think it's also the prices of inflation and everything else going up could all intertwine, like just his repeating himself. So yeah, no, he was very much right. But I do hope you did enjoy today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I do hope to see you in the next one, and see ya.